Tonight, on A Week in League, we'll be talking about a bunch of new retirements, LCS time changes, some new rosters, and so much more right after the intro. Welcome to A Week in League, where we cover League of Legends esports all around the globe from all 4 major regions. I'm your host, Slomar, and let's just get right into the news. This year, we're back and we're better than ever, baby. Upgrades all around, and with my new work schedule, I should be able to put these out on time. Let's ignore the fact that this one is a few days late because I was getting some things ready and I was a little sick last week, but it is what it is. In the future, I'll be aiming to release these around Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest. By the way, if you're new to the show, here we talk about the 4 major regions and all LOL esports news. As usual, timestamps and links will be in the description, and while you're down there, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thanks. The LPL actually started in mid-January and had 2 weeks of competition before going on break for Lunar New Year. But the LPL has been back since January 30th. With the Lunar New Year break happening around the first 2 weeks of the spring split, things are usually a little bit slower to start. I mean, Uzi was famously known for not even playing those first 2 weeks, so because of this, I think the current standings are looking a little sus in my opinion, so we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the standings, let's take a look. IG is on top with convincing wins in my opinion, but I think it's a little too early to tell who's going to be on top of the standings. We can talk about this more next week. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the new LPL rosters, but here are some notable LPL rosters in the spring of 2023. We have Top Esports signing Rookie to the roster, and this is going to be very exciting to watch. JDG signing Knight and Ruler. That's a fire signing if you ask me. Team WE with their new bot lane. We'll have to see what Hope can get done on this team. And the team that I'm most excited about in the LPL this split is IG with their new top laner, YSKM, or You Should Know Me. The guy is an absolute monster, and he's been wrecking the scene ever since he's been on the Rift. I think all of these rosters have a really high potential this year, and let's see if any of them can win the split. You know what time it is. Time for Game of the Week. Guess it's been like 3 LPL weeks, but we'll still give this a shot. The Game of the Week is going to be IG versus RNG. And man, what a banger. Even though the series only went to 2 games, IG's new top laner was sure styling on Breathe. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how good he is, I don't know what will. He's also got a really cool name, so that helps. The series was good, definitely worth a watch, but most importantly, I want to keep my eye on this guy moving forward. I want to see how he performs against other LPL top laners. Can IG really be a playoffs contender this year? I don't know, but that wraps up our LPL coverage for this week. Tune in next week where we're going to be discussing the standings in a little more details, perhaps even trying to find the imposter. The LCK kicked off on the 18th, and we've had 2 weeks of games since. The last 2 weeks in the LCK have been interesting, to say the least. More specifically, I'm talking about the LCK bot lane meta, with 80 carries popping up in the support role like no other. We've seen a lot of double 80 carry picks in bot lane, with 80 carries like Jhin, Caitlyn, and Kalista being played in the support role at the highest levels. Hold your horses, this does not mean you should go playing 80 carries in your support role in solo queue. I remember when T1 brought out the MF support to counter Zyra, and soon enough everybody was an MF support main in my solo queue games. Please don't do that. This dark tech has been around for a while, for lack of a better word, starting off with Heimerdinger and Jhin, going all the way up to Caitlyn and Kalista, which are arguably just evolutions of that current meta. With 2 weeks of games on the board, here are what the standings look like. We got T1 and D+, formerly known as Dom1 Kia, at the top for now. And while we're talking about the teams, let's talk about some of the most exciting rosters in the LCK this year. I'm going to start off by talking about the 2022 Worlds winners, DRX, and their roster is actually not that exciting at all. Don't be fooled by them as a Western viewer if you don't watch the LCK. they're definitely not going to be contending for the World Championship. I don't think so. D+, rebranding from Dom1 Kia, gets Deft and Kana on the roster and runs it back with the same 3-man core, Showmaker, Kellen, and Canyon. On paper, this team's got giants, and they've been very exciting to watch so far in the LCK. I don't want to say anything too early here, but I think they might make it to the finals. Faker was exploring his options this offseason, but ultimately decided to stay with T1. In fact, T1 is running back the entire 5-man lineup again this year. There's nothing new, and the roster has been solid. They're still at the top of the LCK. We'll have to see what they can accomplish this year. It's crazy to see Faker's career longevity and to see how he continues to top the LCK year after year. Anyways, that's enough of the teams. Time for Game of the Week. And this week, it's obviously going to be the D+ versus T1 Banger Series. This is the series where the Kalista support tech came out. Without spoiling too much of the series goes all the way to 3 games, and that's when the support Kalista comes out. Definitely recommend you watch this. And that wraps up our LCK coverage for this week. Tune in next week for our continued LCK coverage. The LEC kicked off on the 21st of January, and we've had 2 weeks of competition since. With the new LEC format, the regular winter split is only 3 weeks long. By the way, if you want to find out more about the LEC format and all the other league formats, make sure you check out the other video right here. So with 2 weeks on the board already, we only have 1 more week of games left before moving on to the group stage. Personally, I'm excited for some tiebreakers. Let's take a look at the LEC standings. Vitality are at the top, and there's a bit of a 4-way tie in second place. Perhaps the most surprising thing on this list is Excel is in last place. Who would have saw that coming? By the way, Vitality's 5 wins means they already qualify for the group stage. And since we're talking about Vitality, Vitality is one of the most exciting LEC rosters to watch this year. Last year, we talked a lot about their sub-jungler Bo. Well, this year he came to kick ass and chew bubblegum. I mean, chew bubblegum and kick ass. You get the point. G2 drops Jankos for Yike, Flackid for Hansama, and brings back Mickey X onto the roster, keeping only Broken Blade and Caps from last year. Arguably though, they're looking just as good, so personally, I'm not really excited about any other LEC rosters this year, especially after Excel bombed so hard, so maybe we'll revisit this some other time in the future. And you know what time it is? Time for Game of the Week! And this week, it's Vitality versus G2. And no, it's not just because we were just talking about these 2 teams. Well, maybe it is, but whatever. Honestly, Bo just puts on a vibe performance that every Western jungler should study. Maybe there were other bangers this last week, but this is the one we're going with here. And that's about it for our LEC coverage this week. On to the LCS. Shouts out to the LCS broadcast this year. I was very hesitant, especially after people like Pastry Time and Dash have left, but it's a good product. There's no analyst desk, it's more like an analyst couch type thing, which was a little worrying to me in the beginning, but it's playing out pretty good. Some of the new talent, like this guy Raf or Mark, he's been doing great, and it seems like they're trying to minimize the downtime by playing team content or other bits during what would be like the 3-minute break in between games, which I like. Back in my day, in the 1 hour, leading up to the LCS show, they would play all the teams documentary content. I miss those days. The good old days. And speaking of the good old days, Doublelift and Bjergsen are back. Yes, baby. They're even on the same team. You heard that correctly. It's not 2016 TSM, baby. It is 2023 100 Thieves. The lineup is definitely got potential to be good, but it's also got potential to be bad, so who knows? All I know is that the goats are back. I didn't mean that kind of goat, but I guess it's an easy mistake to make, huh? CLG running back the exact same lineup as last year, and we all know how we feel about CLG around here. Choo choo! Can CLG do it this year? I sure hope so. we have Cloud9 running back the same lineup with the exception of their new mid laner, DRX, in place of Jensen. FlyQuest, arguably one of the most exciting LCS roster this year, Impact, Spica, Rekkless, Prince, and Ayla in the bot lane. It's very early to tell, but some of these rosters are very exciting. Make sure you keep an eye out for them. Now, let's take a look at the Week 1 standings. We got C9, CLG, FlyQuest, and TSM in first place. Again, it's way too early to tell anything with these standings, but I bet you didn't expect TL to be 0-2 down there, huh? And you know what time it is? Time for Game of the Week! And this week, it's gonna be TL versus TSM. This was a 40-minute game that was going back and forth, but TSM managed to close it out. Speaking of TSM, I'm happy to see Solo on a starting roster rather than just coming in halfway through the split to save somebody. I really want to see what this guy could do given a full split, you know? And that's about it for our LCS coverage this week. Stick around for other news in the next segment. I want to talk about the LCS time changes and viewership. This isn't really one story, but a series of events and stories that are all kind of related. Maybe I'm a little late to this party, but I want to put my 2 cents in. I'll try to give some context before we get too deep into this. I've been an LCS fan for 10 years now, watching since the very first season in 2013. Personally, I always tried to watch live, but if I couldn't watch the game, I'd watch the VOD later, sometimes even the highlights if I'm busy, but I'm always trying to stay in the loop when it comes to the LCS. So while I'm not opposed to watching a VOD or a highlight, live experience is definitely better in my opinion. I'm also now fortunate enough to be freelance working from home during the day and can just throw on the LCS my second monitor midweek. But the reality is not everybody can do this, and just a few months ago I had a normal 9 to 5 and this LCS change would have meant that I would have watched almost 0 live LCS. I understand Riot made the changes to try to grow the LCS and whatnot, and I obviously want the LCS to grow, but it's very hard for me to understand how a change to midweek, midday can boost the viewership in any reasonable way. I know there's community speculation about Valorant taking the weekend spot, and Riot said the LEC is on the weekend and they don't want to fight for viewership. I kind of get it, but at the same time, most people can just watch the games on the weekend. I don't know, maybe let me know how you feel about this in the comment section below. The initial change was to move the LCS to Thursday and Friday at 12 p.m. EST. But after some massive community backlash, it's been pushed by 2 hours, so now it starts at 2 p.m. EST, but still on Thursdays and Fridays. I think the worst part, in my opinion, is that all the hype games are happening at the beginning of the day, meaning that if you were getting off work on the West Coast or even the East Coast, you have a solid chance of missing the first 2 games of the day, which are usually the most hype. Travis Gafford has done an interview with some of the LOL Esports people behind this decision. If you want to get their side of the story, the link is in the description. Even after this change, I know it's the first week and the viewership is still down, right? And that could be to the time change, could be just because the LCS is dying or whatever. But I'm willing to bet that the start time changing multiple times doesn't really help with our viewership numbers. So we'll have to see what the viewership looks like over the course of the entire season. In other news, the World's 2022 champions, DRX, revealed their skin picks. For Kingen, we have Aatrox. For Pioshik, you guessed it, we have Kindred. For Zeka, we have Akali. For Deft, we have Caitlyn. And for Beryl, we have Ashe. I can't wait to see these skins in game. While we're on the topic of Worlds, Mr. Beast was on broadcast during the Worlds finals and he confirmed that he's gonna buy an LCS team. Roll the clip.
There's been some rumors. Are you going to buy an LCS team?
Oh gosh. Boom. Well, yeah, 100%. Let's go!
I can't wait for Beast Gaming in the LCS. Someone please sell him a slot. I can already see the video titles. Buying an LCS slot with pennies. Paying double lift salary in trash bags. Get it? So he can take out the trash in the LCS? Haha, get it? 10-year-old meme? Speaking of money in the bank, FTX ain't got none, so the LCS is trying to get out of that FTX deal. No more FTX power play, no more TSM FTX or whatever, huh? In other news, let's group 2 Rekkless offseason stories together, just to say we covered them here. Rekkless was under fire for problematic behavior by ex-coaching staff. I won't go into too much details on here, but you can read more in the description. In other Rekkless news, he's now back on Fnatic. The end. This one's a little spicy for ya. Jankos admits to illegal pause in the LEC during week 1. Roll the clip.
But he never played on 240, he always played on 144. So he had to pause because he felt like his monitor is weird and he had to change back to 144. But normally this is illegal. You can only pause if it's like a big problem.
When the ref asked for clarification on the pause, Jankos said it was just a monitor issue and the game was resumed. This is technically an illegal pause since you're supposed to check all your monitor settings prior to the game starting. Speaking of pauses, the LEC's first week was littered with pauses all around. The fans are blaming all the pauses that were caused by technical issues for the lower than average LEC viewership. For context, the average game time in the LEC was about 3250, while the downtime between games was sometimes over 33 minutes. This can severely hurt the viewer experience. Fortunately though, things have been a lot smoother for week 2. In other news, Vitality Perkz fined in his first LEC game due to a rune page bug. The rune water walking was disabled for the first week of the LEC due to a bug that causes a player to gain a little more mana than intended. If you want to learn more, links are always in description. DangMoo makes history as the first ever female League of Legends pro in Korea. Liv's Sandbox team in the LCK Challengers League has signed DangMoo, making it the first time any League of Legends team in South Korea has put a female pro player on the roster. I hope we can see more female players in LOL Esports. In other news, Riot Games revealed the LCS 2023 Spring and Summer Finals locations. This is great news in my opinion, especially after the last couple years where everything has been announced so last minute. Love to see the change though. I left all these till the end, but basically I wanted to talk about everyone who has left the LCS scene this year. It seems like more than usual, a lot of people have left, moved, retired, whatever you want to call it, and I just want to comment on it. First, Papa Smithy moved to FlyQuest to become its new president. Honestly, the entire FlyQuest rebrand, if you want to call it that, with the new roster, acquiring Ovally and Dash on the content team, has been amazing. If you haven't seen the FlyQuest content, go check it out. Speaking of Dash, he was let go from the LCS broadcast and the whole situation was kind of strange. Here's a clip from Dash on stream talking about this.
That was the saddening part in all of it, is that I wasn't spoken to prior to the news just being, delivered, like being told that this was what was happening. That would probably be the only piece in the whole puzzle that I think really eats at me.
He's now on the FlyQuest content team and is gonna be making content with the LCS to some capacity, but no one really knows any of the details yet. Whippo taking the LCS Spring Split off despite the offer from Vitality. Honestly, I'm kinda glad he stuck around in North America. He was on the broadcast last week and he did great as usual. More Whippo, please. LCS caster Freak announces his retirement from casting and moves to the Game Balance team. Freak said before leaving that he's going to continue to do the patch rundowns and champion spotlights. But honestly, the new Freak game designer patch rundown thingies he's doing, top notch. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go check it out. It's a behind the scenes look on why they're balancing League of Legends. You want to know why they changed Infinity Edge? Watch this video. It's honestly kind of refreshing to get any communication from Riot. Upset and Flacket are left teamless after the offseason. This one hit me a little too hard when I was watching this video, but Afromoo retired. I definitely got in my feels watching this video, so roll the clip.
I'm sure you already know I'm not on any team going into this next year. I don't think I will be League of Legends anymore. It's been an insane run. Really enjoyed my time. I wanted to especially thank the fans for, cheering for me, old and new. But for me, yeah, I wish I could keep going, but yeah, I just think it's time. My body and mind are pretty much just telling me, yeah, it's about that time. I'm done, I can go out, proud of what I've done in League of Legends, and I had a good time.
If you haven't seen this video, I highly suggest you do. Afro has been one of the longest standings players in the LCS, period. On to the spicy one. Frostgurn announces Esports retirement in a tweet saying, quote, "This industry is really messed up." Quote, "There have been some developments in the Frostgurn situation since, with some people like Quickshot throwing shade back at the situation, but arguably the biggest bomb dropped just a few hours ago as the time of filming this video. The channel, Culturescape, dropped a 2-hour video titled What Really Happened at G4 TV, an exclusive interview with Indiana Frostgurn Black. To be honest, I haven't gotten around to watching this 2-hour video yet, as it just came out, but you can expect us to give you the scoop next week. And that's the end of our show for this week. We finally hit 100 subs, and I still cannot believe it. Thank you so much for all the support. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to work out a more consistent upload schedule so I can get these out on time, so please bear with me. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing. Have a good night, and good luck in solo queue.